The little black girl's fist hit the clubhouse door 3 times. Blood ran down her face. Rain soaked through her torn pink blanket. Behind that door stood 47 of the most dangerous men in California, killers, outlaws, men who'd buried enemies in unmarked graves. Marcus Reaper Thompson yanked the door open, ready to destroy whoever dared knock uninvited. Then he saw her, 6 years old, shaking, bruises covering her arms. The most feared biker in the Hells Angels dropped to his knees in the rain. "They beat my mama," she whispered. Then they took her away. 47 hardened criminals went dead silent. What happened next would start a war. Before we continue, drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. Subscribe now and stay until the end. This one will change everything. The room went dead silent. 47 men, every single one of them, carrying enough criminal history to fill a filing cabinet, and not one of them could find words. The thunder outside rumbled like God himself was holding his breath. Marcus Reaper Thompson stayed on his knees, eye level with the child. Rain poured down her face, mixing with tears and something darker. Her braids hung limp against her shoulders, dripping water onto the concrete threshold that separated the Hells Angels from the outside world. "Say that again, baby girl," Marcus whispered. "They beat my mama." Her voice cracked on the last word. "And then they took her away." Behind Marcus, Tommy, Hammer Rodriguez, set down his beer bottle so hard it cracked against the bar top. "Reaper, what the hell?" "Shut up." Marcus didn't turn around. His eyes never left the little girl's face. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Destiny." She hiccuped, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Destiny Williams." Destiny. Marcus tested the name like it meant something, like it was supposed to mean something. "How old are you?" 6 3/4. And despite everything, Marcus felt something twist in his chest. 6 3/4. Like those extra months mattered. Like being almost 7 would somehow make any of this easier to understand. "Destiny, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Can you do that?" She nodded, but her whole body was shaking so hard her teeth clicked together. Snake Williams, no relation to the girl, just a coincidence that would haunt him later, pushed off from his spot at the pool table. "For Christ's sake, Reaper, bring the kid inside before she catches pneumonia. We can figure out what to do after she's not freezing to death." Marcus scooped Destiny into his arms without thinking. She weighed almost nothing, just bones and wet clothes and terror. She stiffened for half a second, then buried her face against his leather jacket like she'd been waiting her whole life for someone to pick her up. The door slammed shut behind them, cutting off the storm. "Get me blankets," Marcus ordered. "And something hot to drink. Not coffee, hot chocolate if we have it." "We don't have hot chocolate," Bulldog Mackenzie said from somewhere near the back. "This ain't a damn daycare." "Then someone drive to the gas station and buy some." Marcus's voice dropped into the register that made grown men reconsider their life choices. "Now!" Bulldog was out the door before anyone could blink. Marcus carried Destiny to the leather couch near the fireplace, a fireplace that hadn't been lit in 3 years, because nobody in the Hells Angels gave a damn about ambiance. He set her down gently, then crouched in front of her. "Destiny, look at me." She lifted her head. Up close, the damage was worse than he'd thought. The bruise on her left cheek was fresh, maybe 6 hours old, already purpling around the edges, but the cut on her lip was partially healed, at least a few days old. And there, on her upper arms, finger-shaped bruises in various stages of fading. This wasn't the first time someone had hurt this child. Marcus felt something old and familiar rising in his chest, something he'd spent 35 years trying to bury. "Who did this to you?" His voice came out rougher than he intended. "Who put their hands on you?" The bad men. Destiny's lower lip trembled. The ones who took Mama. Tell me about these bad men. What did they look like? They had pictures on their arms. She pointed at Marcus's tattoo-covered forearms. Like yours, but different. Snakes. Lots of snakes. Marcus went very still. And one of them had gold teeth, Destiny continued. Right here. She tapped her front teeth. They sparkled when he smiled. But it wasn't a nice smile. It was a scary smile. Behind Marcus, the room had gone completely silent again. Every man in that clubhouse knew exactly what snake tattoos and gold teeth meant. The Serpientes cartel had been creeping into their territory for months, pushing out local dealers buying off cops and leaving bodies in drainage ditches. Ghost, Marcus said quietly. Get over here. Marcus Webb materialized from the shadows near the back wall. His pale skin and silent movements had earned him his road name 15 years ago, and he'd spent every day since living up to it. Nobody saw Ghost coming until he wanted them to. I heard, Ghost said, crouching down beside Marcus. Little one, I need to ask you some questions. Is that okay? Destiny looked at Marcus for permission. He nodded. The man with the gold teeth, Ghost said gently. Did he say anything? Anything you can remember. He said Mama saw something she wasn't supposed to see. Destiny's voice dropped to barely a whisper. He said if she tells anybody, they'll come back and hurt us both real bad. He said they know where I go to school. They know where Mama works. He said we can never hide from them. Ghost's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Did they say where they were taking your Mama? The place where problems go away. Destiny's eyes filled with fresh tears. That's what Gold Teeth said. He told Mama she had until Sunday to decide if she wanted to be smart or if she wanted to end up like the policeman. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. What policeman? Marcus asked carefully. The one in the pictures. Mama took pictures with her phone. She didn't know I saw, but I saw. There was a policeman on his knees, and then Destiny's face crumpled. There was a really loud noise and he fell down and didn't get back up. Marcus exchanged a look with Ghost that communicated volumes. Keisha Williams had witnessed a cartel execution of a police officer. She'd taken photographs. And somehow the Serpientes had found out. Destiny, Marcus said, keeping his voice as calm as he could manage. Where did this happen? Where were you when you saw the bad men? The house with the broken fence. Mama was taking me to Mrs. Garcia's house because she said it wasn't safe at home anymore. But the bad men were waiting in a big black car. They grabbed Mama and threw her inside. Destiny's whole body convulsed with a sob. I ran as fast as I could. Mama told me if anything bad ever happened, I should run to the building with the motorcycles because the motorcycle men would help me. Every man in that room felt those words like a punch to the gut. This child's mother facing down cartel killers, being dragged into a car to face God knows what had told her daughter to run to the Hells Angels for help. Not the police, not a neighbor. The Hells Angels. Why? Snake Williams asked, stepping forward. His voice was rough with something that might have been emotion. Why'd your mama tell you to come here? Destiny looked up at him with eyes too old for her face. Because Mama said the motorcycle men saved her cousin's daughter last year when the bad men came for her. She said they're scary on the outside, but good on the inside. She said they protect people who can't protect themselves. The silence that followed was the heaviest Marcus had ever experienced. He didn't know anything about saving anyone's cousin's daughter. Could have been another charter. Could have been a story that got twisted in the telling. Could have been something that never happened at all. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that a terrified woman facing death had believed it enough to stake her daughter's life on it. Destiny. Marcus's voice came out thick. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Are you listening? She nodded her small hand, finding his and holding on tight. You were very brave tonight, braver than most grown-ups I know, and I'm going to make you a promise right now. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. Nobody is going to hurt you while you're here, and we're going to find your mama and bring her home. Do you understand? You promise. Marcus Thompson had made very few promises in his life. He'd learned early that promises were just words people use to make themselves feel better before they inevitably let you down. His mother had promised his stepfather would stop drinking. His stepfather had promised he'd never raise his hand again. The foster system had promised he'd find a good home. The Marines had promised he'd come back the same person he was when he left. Every single one of those promises had been a lie. But looking into this little girl's eyes that had seen too much and trusted too little, but were somehow still willing to hope, Marcus felt something shift inside him that he'd thought was dead. I promise, he said. And for the first time in 35 years, he meant it. The clubhouse door banged open and Bulldog stumbled in, soaking wet and breathing hard, clutching a plastic bag from the gas station. Got the hot chocolate, he announced, then saw everyone staring at him. What? What did I miss? Start heating water, Marcus ordered, standing up. Ghost hammer, my office. Now. The rest of you, nobody leaves, nobody makes calls, nobody does anything until I say so. He looked down at Destiny, who was watching him with those two old eyes. Angel's on her way, Ghost said quietly. Called her while you were talking to the kid. Marcus nodded. Angel would know what to do. Angel always knew what to do when things got complicated. I'll be right back, Destiny. Doc is going to sit with you and make sure you're okay. He's a doctor, he helps people feel better. Will it hurt? No, baby. He's just going to look at your owies and make sure nothing's broken. Marcus gestured to Doc, who approached slowly with his hands visible, like he was trying not to spook a wounded animal. Hey there, little darling, Doc said, his bourbon-roughened voice softer than anyone had ever heard it. I'm Doc. I've been fixing up these knuckleheads for 20 years. You're going to be a lot easier patient than any of them. Destiny almost smiled. Marcus turned and walked toward his office at the back of the clubhouse, Ghost and Hammer falling into step behind him. The moment the door closed, the calm facade he'd been maintaining cracked straight down the middle. Tell me everything you know about the Serpientes, Marcus said, slamming his palms on the desk. Every single thing. Ghost pulled a worn notebook from his jacket. The man was a compulsive intelligence gatherer, had been since his days in military intelligence before a dishonorable discharge ended that career. They've been moving into the city for about 8 months. Started with the drug trade buying out or eliminating local dealers. Then they went after the cops. How many? 3 confirmed dead made to look like accidents or unrelated incidents. At least 6 more on their payroll. They've been building infrastructure safe houses, processing labs, money laundering through legitimate businesses. And we didn't do anything, Hammer demanded. They've been setting up shop in our territory for 8 months, and we just let it happen. They were careful, Ghost said flatly. They didn't touch our operations, didn't mess with our people, didn't give us a reason to notice them. Classic cartel playbook, establish first, consolidate second, eliminate, competition third. And now they're in the elimination phase, Marcus finished. Starting with anyone who can tie them to murdering a cop. What cop? Hammer asked. Ghost flipped through his notebook. Detective Raymond Morrison was reported missing 3 weeks ago. Department claimed he was deep undercover, but my contacts say they stopped looking for him after 4 days. If this kid's mother has pictures of his execution, then she's got evidence that could bring down their whole operation, Marcus said, along with every dirty cop who helped cover it up. So they grabbed her to find out what she knows, and who she told, Hammer concluded. Which means they'll be looking for the kid too. She's a loose end. Marcus's blood ran cold. The scanner. What frequency do the Serpientes use? Ghost was already pulling out a police scanner modified to pick up cartel communications. He adjusted the dial, and a stream of rapid Spanish filled the office. My Spanish is rusty, Hammer admitted. Mine isn't. Ghost's face went gray as he translated. They're mobilizing everything they have. Someone saw the kid running toward this part of town. They don't know she's here specifically, but he stopped abruptly. But what? They're offering money to anyone who has information? A lot of money. Ghost looked up. And they've got a deadline. If they don't find the kid by tomorrow night, they're going to assume the mother talked and implement Protocol 7. What's Protocol 7? I don't know. But the way they said it. Ghost shook his head. It didn't sound like a negotiation. Marcus turned to the window, staring out at the storm-darkened street. Somewhere out there, Keisha Williams was being held by men who tortured and killed without hesitation. She had less than 24 hours before whatever Protocol 7 meant was put into action. And her daughter, her brave, terrified 6 3/4-year-old daughter, was sitting on a couch in a biker clubhouse, believing that the scary men with tattoos would save them both. Because her mother had told her they would. Reaper. Hammer's voice was uncharacteristically hesitant. You know this isn't our fight, right? We call the feds, hand over the kid, let them deal with it. We've got no stake in this. Marcus didn't turn around. Hammer, what would you do if it was your daughter? I don't have a daughter. What if you did? Hammer went quiet. That little girl out there, Marcus said slowly, ran through a thunderstorm probably for miles with nothing but a torn blanket and the hope that strangers would help her. Her mother told her to find us, not the police us, because somewhere along the line someone convinced her that the Hell's Angels protect people who can't protect themselves. That's not exactly what we do. Maybe it should be. Marcus finally turned around, and the look in his eyes made both men take an involuntary step back. I'm not asking for a vote. I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you what's going to happen. We're going to find Keisha Williams. We're going to bring her home to her daughter, and we're going to make the Serpientes regret ever setting foot in our city. That's war, Ghost said quietly. Against a cartel with military resources, law enforcement connections, and probably 50 soldiers within a 20-mile radius. Then we'll need help. What kind of help? Marcus pulled out his phone. Get me steel from the Iron Wolves, diesel from the Desert Rats, Phoenix from the Wild Cards, and reach out to the Thunderdogs in Sacramento. You want to call a summit now, in the middle of the night. I want to call in every favor, every alliance, every debt that's owed to this club. Marcus's jaw tightened. By morning, I want enough firepower to make the Serpientes think twice about whatever Protocol 7 is. Hammer whistled low. You're serious? I'm always serious. You've just never seen what that looks like when it matters. The office door opened, and Angel Rodriguez stepped in, rain still dripping from her blonde hair. She took one look at Marcus's face, and immediately understood. The little girl, she asked. Destiny, 6 years old. Mother kidnapped by the Serpientes, probably being tortured right now for information about a cop murder she witnessed. The cartel is hunting for Destiny as we speak. Angel absorbed this in about 3 seconds. What do you need? I need you to take care of her, keep her calm, keep her safe, make her feel like the world isn't ending. Marcus paused. I need you to be what I can't be right now. Angel crossed the room and took his face in her hands. You're going after the mother. It wasn't a question. Yes. Even if it starts a war. Even then. Angel studied him for a long moment, seeing something in his eyes that she'd only glimpsed a few times in their 3 years together. Something raw and broken and fierce, that he kept buried so deep most people didn't know it existed. "That little girl reminds you of someone," Angel said softly. "Doesn't she?" Marcus's throat tightened. "She reminds me of me, 35 years ago, standing in a doorway watching someone I loved being hurt, and nobody—" His voice cracked. "Nobody came. Nobody helped. I spent my whole life becoming someone that nobody would ever hurt again. But I forgot that the point wasn't just surviving. The point was making sure no other kid ever had to feel what I felt." Angel kissed him gently. "Then go save her mother. I'll make sure Destiny knows she's not alone." She turned and walked out of the office without another word. "That," Hammer said after a moment, "is one hell of a woman." "Yeah," Marcus agreed. "She is." His phone buzzed. Then again. Then a third time in rapid succession. "Iron Wolves are in," he announced, reading the messages. "Desert Rats too. Phoenix is on her way personally." He looked up at Ghost. "Get me everything you have on Serpiente's operations. Safe houses, drug labs, money laundering fronts, everything. We hit them tonight." "We don't have enough intel for a full assault," Ghost warned. "Then we'll get more. Hammer grab Rodriguez and check the 3-block radius around where Destiny said she was grabbed. Look for blood signs of struggle, anything that tells us where they might have taken her mother. And if we run into Serpiente's soldiers, ask them politely where Keisha Williams is being held. And if they don't feel like answering politely," Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes, "then ask them impolitely." After they left, Marcus opened the bottom drawer of his desk and pulled out a small metal box. Inside, wrapped in faded tissue paper, were 2 dog tags on a broken chain. The metal was tarnished with age, but the stamped letters were still clear. Thompson, William J. U.S. Army, Vietnam, 1968 to 1970. His father's tags. The only thing Marcus had left from the man who died when Marcus was 12. William Thompson had survived 2 tours in the Mekong Delta, had earned medals for valor that Marcus still kept in a safety deposit box somewhere, had been the kind of soldier who brought all his men home alive. Then a drunk driver ran a red light on a Tuesday afternoon, and everything Marcus thought he knew about the world ended. "I don't know what I'm doing, Dad," Marcus said quietly, running his thumb over the raised letters. "I don't know if I can save this kid's mother. I don't even know if I can keep her safe. But I know I have to try." The dog tags didn't answer. They never did. But somehow Marcus felt less alone holding them. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Doc stuck his head in his face, grave. "You need to see this." Marcus followed him back to the main room where Destiny was sitting on the couch, wrapped in 3 blankets, sipping hot chocolate that Bulldog had apparently figured out how to make. She looked up when Marcus approached. "The doctor found something," she said, her voice very small. "He says it's important." Doc gestured for Marcus to follow him a few feet away, then spoke in a low voice. "The recent injuries are what you'd expect someone grabbed her hard enough to bruise, hit her face at least once. But Marcus there are older marks. Finger bruises on her upper arms in various stages of healing, a partially healed cut on her lip. And this." He held up a hospital bracelet, yellowed and worn. It was hidden under her sleeve. 3 weeks old. Emergency room visit for multiple contusions. The paperwork lists the cause as accidental fall. But Marcus, Doc's voice tightened. "Those aren't falling injuries. Someone has been hurting this child systematically for weeks, maybe longer." Marcus felt the rage building in his chest like a pressure cooker about to blow. "The cartel? Maybe. Or maybe whoever was hurting her before is connected to why the mother was running in the first place. She said her mother was taking her to Mrs. Garcia's house because it wasn't safe at home anymore." "Exactly." Doc's face was grim. "I've been patching up victims of domestic violence for 20 years. This has all the hallmarks. The mother was trying to escape someone, maybe someone connected to the cartel, maybe just someone with enough power to keep her trapped. When she witnessed that murder, it might have been the leverage she needed to finally run. Or the reason they were watching her in the first place. Either way, this kid has been through hell. Not just tonight, for a long time. Marcus walked back to the couch and crouched down in front of Destiny. She looked up at him with those two old eyes, hot chocolate mustache on her upper lip. Destiny. I need to ask you some questions that might be hard to answer. Is that okay? She nodded slowly. Before tonight, before the bad men came, was someone else hurting you, someone at home. Destiny's whole body went rigid. Her grip on the hot chocolate mug tightened until her knuckles went white. It's okay, Marcus said gently. You're safe here. Nothing you say will make me angry at you. I just need to understand. Mama's boyfriend. The words came out barely above a whisper. Jerome. He said if I told anyone he'd hurt Mama worse. He said it was my fault because I was bad. He said she couldn't finish. The tears came flooding out and her whole small body shook with sobs that she'd probably been holding back for months. Marcus gathered her into his arms without hesitation. She buried her face against his leather jacket and cried like her heart was breaking, probably because it was. Listen to me, Marcus said fiercely. None of this is your fault. Not one single bit of it. You are not bad. You did nothing wrong. The people who hurt you, they're the bad ones. They're the ones who should be punished, not you. Never you. But Jerome said, Jerome is a liar. And when I find him, he's going to answer for every single bruise he put on you. Destiny pulled back, looking up at Marcus with red-rimmed eyes. You're going to find Jerome. I'm going to find your mama, Marcus said firmly. And yes, I'm going to find Jerome. And when I do, he's never going to hurt anyone ever again. Promise? There it was again. That word, that question, that tiny hand reaching out for something to hold on to in a world that had given her nothing but pain. I promise, Marcus said, and felt the weight of it settle into his bones like armor. His phone buzzed. A message from Hammer found the site. Blood on the fence. Got her purse. And Reaper, we found pictures. You need to see these. Marcus looked at Destiny, then at Angel, who had come to stand nearby. I have to go, he told Destiny. But Angel is going to stay with you, and Doc is going to be right here, and nobody is going to hurt you while I'm gone. You'll come back, yes. And you'll bring Mama. Marcus cupped her small face in his massive hand. I will move heaven and earth to bring your Mama home to you. That's not a promise, that's a fact. He stood and walked toward the door, pausing only to grab his leather jacket from the hook where he'd thrown it earlier. Reaper. Snake Williams stepped into his path. The older man's face was conflicted, torn between the rules they'd lived by for decades and something that looked almost like conscience. What you're doing, it's not smart. Going to war with a cartel over someone we don't even know. She's 6 years old, Snake. Marcus's voice was quiet but final. She ran through a storm because her mother told her we were the good guys, and I'll be damned if I'm going to prove her mother wrong. He pushed past Snake and walked out into the rain. Behind him, the Hells Angels clubhouse fell silent. And for the first time in its 40-year history, the question hanging in the air wasn't about territory or money or power. It was about whether they were the men they'd always claimed to be, or just pretenders wearing leather costumes. Snake Williams stood at the window, watching Marcus's motorcycle disappear into the darkness. Then he turned and looked at Destiny, who was curled up on the couch with Angel's arm around her, finally starting to drift toward sleep. Hell, Snake muttered to no one in particular. Guess we're going to war. He pulled out his phone and started making calls. Marcus rode through the rain like a man possessed. The coordinates Hammer had sent burned in his mind 3 blocks east the house with the broken fence. Every second that passed was another second Keisha Williams spent in the hands of men who killed without hesitation. His phone buzzed in his jacket. Ghost's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Reaper, we've got a problem. Scanner's picking up Serpiente's chatter. They know someone took the girl. They're sweeping the neighborhood." "How close?" 6 blocks and closing. They've got 4 vehicles doing a grid search. Marcus gunned the engine harder. "Tell Hammer to stay hidden until I get there. Nobody moves until I see those pictures." He killed his headlight 2 blocks out and coasted the last stretch in darkness. Hammer's bike was tucked behind a dumpster, nearly invisible. Ghost's pale face emerged from the shadows beside an abandoned storefront. "This way," Ghost whispered. "And Reaper, prepare yourself." The house with the broken fence looked like every other dying building in this neighborhood. Bars on the windows, weeds choking the yard. The kind of place where screams went unheard and questions went unasked. But the blood on the concrete walkway was fresh. Hammer met them at the door, his face tight with controlled fury. "Inside. You need to see this before we do anything else." The living room told the story of a fight. Overturned furniture, a lamp shattered against the wall. More blood smeared across the floor in a pattern that suggested someone had been dragged. And there, dumped beside the couch, a woman's purse. "Keisha Williams," Hammer said, handing Marcus the driver's license. 29 years old, works at the hospital as a translator, single mother. Marcus stared at the photo. Kind eyes, gentle smile. The same delicate bone structure he'd seen in Destiny's face. This woman had raised a daughter brave enough to run through a storm seeking help from strangers. She deserved better than whatever was happening to her right now. "Show me the pictures." Hammer hesitated. "Reaper, show me." A ghost pulled a plastic evidence bag from his jacket. Inside were several photographs, the kind taken quickly on a cell phone and printed at a drugstore. The images were slightly blurry, but clear enough to understand. 3 men in expensive suits forcing someone to kneel beside a car trunk. A 4th man, snake tattoos covering his arms, gold teeth gleaming, raising a pistol. And the victim hands bound behind his back, face twisted in terror. Marcus recognized him. Detective Raymond Morrison. Reported missing 3 weeks ago. "She witnessed a cartel execution of a cop," Ghost said quietly. "And she was stupid enough or brave enough to document it." "That's not all," Hammer pointed to one of the suited men. "Look at the badge." Marcus looked closer. The man holding Detective Morrison's shoulder wore a police badge clipped to his belt. And his face. "That's Lieutenant Colonel Harrison," Marcus breathed. "Head of the anti-gang task force. The man who's been promising to clean up the streets," Ghost confirmed. "Turns out he's been cleaning them for the Serpientes." Marcus's mind raced through the implications. This wasn't just a cartel murder. This was systematic corruption reaching into the highest levels of local law enforcement. Keisha Williams hadn't just witnessed a crime, she'd stumbled onto evidence that could bring down an entire network. No wonder they wanted her dead. "There's more," Hammer said grimly. He held up a small spiral notebook, its pages water-damaged but still legible. "Found this in her purse. She's been documenting everything. Dates, times, license plates. She knew she was in danger, and she was building a case. Against who? Everyone. The cartel, the cops, and someone named Jerome Carter." Marcus went very still. Destiny mentioned a Jerome, said he was her mother's boyfriend, said he was hurting them both. According to this notebook, Jerome Carter is a mid-level Serpientes distributor. He moved in with Keisha about 6 months ago. She didn't know what he was at first, but once she figured it out, Hammer shook his head. She was trapped. He threatened to kill Destiny if she tried to leave or talk to anyone. So she stayed. Until she witnessed the Morrison execution. Then she started planning. Hammer flipped through the notebook. She reached out to a federal agent 3 days ago, someone named Sarah Chen with the FBI. Meeting was scheduled for Monday. Today is Saturday, Ghost said. She didn't make it. Marcus felt the pieces clicking together like a loading chamber. Keisha Williams had been living in hell for 6 months, trapped by a cartel soldier who beat her daughter and threatened their lives. When she witnessed the cop murder, she saw her chance evidence valuable enough to buy federal protection for herself and Destiny. But someone found out. Someone tipped off the Serpientes before she could make her move. Jerome, Marcus said flatly. He figured out she was planning to run. That's my read, Hammer agreed. The beating on Destiny, the fresh bruises probably happened when Jerome realized Keisha was about to flip. He used the girl to keep her in line, but Keisha ran anyway. And the Serpientes grabbed her before she could reach safety. Which means they're interrogating her right now, Ghost added. Finding out what she knows, who she told, whether copies of those photos exist. Marcus looked at the photograph of Keisha Williams again. This woman had endured 6 months of abuse to protect her daughter, had gathered evidence at enormous risk, had been hours away from freedom when the people she was fighting against snatched her off the street. And her last act before being taken was telling Destiny to run to the Hell's Angels. Where's Jerome now? Marcus asked, his voice dangerously quiet. No idea. But if he's the one who sold her out, the Serpientes probably have him too, either paying him off or making sure he can't talk. Find him. Reaper. I said, find him. Marcus's eyes burned with cold fire. That man put his hands on a 6-year-old girl. He terrorized a woman trying to protect her child, and he handed her over to cartel killers to save his own skin. I want him found, and I want him brought to me alive. Ghost and Hammer exchanged glances, but didn't argue. What about the mother? Hammer asked. Marcus pulled out his phone and started scrolling through contacts. We need more firepower, and we need it fast. Who are you calling? Everyone who owes me. The first call went to Tommy Steele Rodriguez, president of the Iron Wolves in Oakland. Steele picked up on the second ring, despite the hour. Reaper, this better be life or death at 3 a.m. It is. Serpientes grabbed a woman and her kid witnessed everything. The girl's at my clubhouse. The mother's got maybe 24 hours before they kill her. Silence on the line. Then, what do you need? Bodies. As many as you can spare. We're going to war. Against the Serpientes. You know what you're asking. I know exactly what I'm asking. Are you in or out? Another pause. You saved my nephew's life 2 years ago. Iron Wolves pay their debts. I'll be there by dawn with 15 men. The line went dead. Marcus dialed the next number. Phoenix Martinez, president of the Wild Cards, the only female club president in California and one of the most ruthless tacticians he'd ever known. This is either very good or very bad, Phoenix said by way of greeting. Bad. Cartel kidnapped a mother kid, came to us for help. I'm calling in every alliance we have. The Serpientes. Gold teeth and snake tattoos. They've been setting up in our territory for months. This is our chance to push them out permanently. And if we lose, then we die knowing we went down fighting for something that mattered. Phoenix laughed, a sharp, dangerous sound. Hell, Reaper. When you put it like that, how can I refuse Wildcard's role at first light? 2 more calls. The Desert Rats said yes. The Thunderdogs said yes. By the time Marcus finished, he had promises of nearly 50 additional fighters converging on the city by morning. But morning might be too late. Ghost, Marcus said, turning back to his lieutenant. That encrypted phone you took from the auto shop last month. Can you still access the Serpientes communication network? Possibly. Why? Because we need to know where they're holding Keisha Williams, and we need to know tonight. Ghost pulled out a modified smartphone and started working. This will take time. Their encryption is military grade. We don't have time. Then find me something to work with. A location, a name, anything that narrows the search. Marcus stared at the photographs spread across the floor. The execution, the dirty cop, the gold-toothed killer. There had to be something here, some detail they were missing. His phone buzzed. Angel's number. "Talk to me," Marcus answered. "It's Destiny." Angel's voice was strained. "She woke up from a nightmare and she's asking for you." But Marcus, she remembered something. Something about where the bad men said they were taking her mother. "Put her on." A moment of rustling, then Destiny's small voice came through the speaker. "Marcus, I'm here, baby girl. Angel said you remembered something. The place where problems go away." Destiny's voice shook slightly. Gold Teeth kept saying it. But he also said something else. He said they were taking Mama to see the snakes. The snakes? That's what he said. He told the other men to take her to see the snakes and make sure she answers all their questions. Marcus muted the phone and turned to Ghost. "Mean anything to you? A place called the Snakes?" Ghost's fingers stopped moving on his phone. "The Snake Pit. It's what they call their main interrogation site. Warehouse on the east side, 1247 Delancey Street. I heard rumors but never confirmed the location." "Destiny," Marcus said, unmuting. "Did you hear a number? An address? Anything like that?" 1247, Destiny said immediately. Gold Teeth made the driver repeat it twice. 1247. "That's our target," Ghost breathed. "She just gave us the location." "Destiny, you are the bravest girl I've ever met," Marcus said, his voice thick. "You just helped us find your mama. Now I need you to go back to sleep, okay? When you wake up, everything's going to be different. Promise." There was that word again, that impossible wait. "Promise." He ended the call and turned to his men. 1247 Delancey. That's where they have her. How fast can we hit it?" "With just us, suicide," Hammer said bluntly. "That warehouse is a fortress. Security cameras, armed guards, reinforced doors. We'd need 20 men minimum to breach it, and even then we wait for the others. If we wait until dawn, Keisha Williams might already be dead." "So what do you suggest?" Hammer and Ghost exchanged a look that communicated years of partnership and shared violence. "Reconnaissance," Ghost said finally. "We scout the location, identify entry points, count guards. When our reinforcements arrive, we'll have everything we need for a surgical strike. And if they start hurting her while we're watching, then we improvise." It wasn't a good answer, but it was the only answer that made sense. "Let's move," Marcus ordered. "And somebody tell Snake to lock down the clubhouse. If the Serpientes figure out where Destiny is before we hit that warehouse, I want them walking into a wall of guns." They rode in formation through streets that were finally starting to quiet as the storm moved east. Marcus's mind churned through tactical scenarios, running the numbers on assault plans that all seemed to end in blood. 20 men against a fortified position held by trained cartel soldiers. The math was brutal. But then again, Marcus had never been good at math. The warehouse at 1247 Delancey Street squatted at the end of a dead-end road, surrounded by chain-link fence topped with razor wire. Floodlights illuminated the perimeter at regular intervals. 3 guards patrolled the outside that they could see, and at least 4 vehicles sat in the parking lot. "Thermal imaging shows 12 heat signatures inside," Ghost reported, peering through a modified scope. "But there could be more in shielded areas." "Which floor?" "Second floor, northwest corner. That's where interrogations happen. I can see movement, but I can't confirm if one of them is the target." Marcus stared at the building that stood between Destiny and her mother. 12 armed men. Maybe more. Professional killers who wouldn't hesitate to execute everyone in that building if they thought they were being raided. "We need a distraction," he said slowly. "Something to draw their attention while a small team extracts Keisha." "What kind of distraction? The kind that makes them think they're under attack from multiple directions." Marcus pulled out his phone. "How far out are Steele's people?" 2 hours minimum. "And Phoenix?" "Same. 2 hours. Keisha Williams might not have 2 hours." Marcus's phone buzzed with an incoming message. Unknown number. He opened it and felt his blood turn to ice. A photograph. Keisha Williams tied to a chair, face bloodied and swollen. A man with gold teeth stood beside her, holding a knife. Below the image, a message: "We know you have the girl. Trade or the mother dies at sunrise." "They're using her as bait," Ghost said quietly, reading over Marcus's shoulder. "They want destiny. They want to eliminate both witnesses, mother and daughter." Marcus stared at the photograph. Keisha Williams looked broken, but her eyes, even through the blood and bruises, still held a spark of defiance. She hadn't given up. She was still fighting, and she was running out of time. "Call them back," Marcus said suddenly. "What? Respond to the message. Tell them we'll trade." Hammer grabbed his arm. "Reaper, you can't be serious. You hand over that little girl, she's dead. They both are." "I'm not handing over anyone." Marcus shook off Hammer's grip. "But they don't know that. They think we're just bikers criminals without loyalty or code. They think we'll give up a child to save our own skins. So we set up a fake exchange. We set up a trap. They bring Keisha to the exchange point thinking they're getting destiny. We grab Keisha and disappear before they realize they've been played. And when they figure out the kid isn't there, then we better be long gone." Marcus started typing a response. "Tell them we'll meet. Neutral territory. 1 hour. 1 hour isn't enough time for our reinforcements to arrive. Then we do it with what we have." Ghost calculated quickly. "That's 8 men against however many they bring to the exchange, plus whatever forces they leave at the warehouse. They won't leave many at the warehouse if they think the exchange is real. They'll want overwhelming force at the meet site. You're betting everything on them being predictable. I'm betting everything on them being greedy." Marcus hit send on the message. "They want that little girl dead more than anything. They'll throw everything at the chance to grab her." The response came back within seconds. St. Catherine's Church. Abandoned parking lot. 1 hour. Come alone, or the woman dies slow. Marcus showed the message to his men. "St. Catherine's. That's 5 miles from here." "It's also surrounded by open ground," Hammer observed. "Perfect killing field. They can see anyone coming from a 1/4 mile away. So we don't come from any direction they expect." Marcus's mind raced through possibilities. St. Catherine's had been abandoned for 3 years, ever since the diocese ran out of money to maintain it. He'd ridden past it 100 times without really seeing it. But Ghost had done recon there once, months ago, looking for a potential fallback position. "The tunnels," Marcus said suddenly. "Ghost St. Catherine's has basement tunnels, right? Old maintenance passages." "Yeah, but they've been sealed for years. City condemned them after that homeless guy got lost and died down there." "Sealed doesn't mean impassable." Ghost's eyes widened as he understood. "You want to come up from below. They'll be watching every approach from ground level, but if we can get into those tunnels, we can emerge inside their perimeter before they even know we're there. It's risky. Those tunnels could be collapsed, flooded, anything. Less risky than a frontal assault against superior numbers." Hammer shook his head slowly, but there was respect in his eyes. "You're out of your mind, Reaper. You know that? I've been told." "All right." Hammer pulled out his own phone. "I know a guy who does urban exploration. If anyone knows those tunnels, he does. Let me make a call." While Hammer worked his contacts, Marcus moved to the edge of their observation point and stared at the warehouse where Keisha Williams was being tortured. Somewhere in that building, a woman was suffering because she'd tried to protect her daughter, because she'd done the right thing in a world that punished righteousness. His phone buzzed again. A message from Angel. Destiny's finally sleeping. She's clutching your jacket like a lifeline. Whatever you're doing out there, come back alive. This little girl needs you. Marcus closed his eyes and let the weight of it settle into his bones. He thought about his father's dog tags in his pocket, about the promises he'd made to a 6-year-old child, about all the years he'd spent becoming hard and cold and dangerous, telling himself it was necessary for survival. Maybe survival wasn't enough anymore. Maybe it was time to become the man that little girl believed he already was. Got it, Hammer announced, ending his call. Tunnel entrance is in the basement of the old rectory next to the church. My guy says it's passable tight in places, some water damage, but it connects to the church basement. How long to traverse? 20 minutes if we move fast? Then we've got 40 minutes to get in position. Marcus checked his weapon, then looked at his men. Hammer, you and Rodriguez take 2 bikes to the meet point. Make it look like we're coming in force. When the shooting starts, fall back and draw them toward the front of the church. And you, Ghost and I go through the tunnels. We come up behind them while they're focused on you. What about Keisha? They'll bring her to the exchange. They have to. It's the only leverage they have. The moment we have eyes on her, Ghost takes out their guards, and I grab her. And if she's not there, then we kill everyone until someone tells us where she is. The plan was insane. The odds were terrible. Any sane man would walk away. But Marcus Thompson had stopped being sane the moment a little girl knocked on his door and asked him to save her mother. Let's move, he ordered. We've got a woman to rescue. They split up, Hammer and Rodriguez, heading for the main approach, Marcus and Ghost circling toward the old rectory. The rain had stopped, but the clouds still hid the moon, giving them darkness to work with. The rectory basement was exactly as described, damp, cramped, and full of debris from years of neglect. But the tunnel entrance was there, hidden behind a collapsed bookshelf that Ghost moved aside with effort. Stay close, Ghost whispered, and watch your footing. One wrong step, and we alert everyone above. They descended into darkness. The tunnel was worse than Marcus expected. 3 feet of standing water in places, collapsed ceiling sections that forced them to crawl. The smell of decay and something else, something chemical that burned their nostrils. But they kept moving. 15 minutes in, Ghost held up a fist. Stop! Marcus froze, straining his ears. Voices. Distant but getting closer. Doesn't show with the girl. El Jefe says we kill the mother on camera and send it to every cop in the city. Make an example. What about the bikers? What about them? They're nothing. Street trash playing outlaw. Once we have the girl, we burn their little clubhouse to the ground with everyone inside. Marcus felt cold fury crystallize in his chest. They were talking about destiny, about murdering a child, about destroying everything and everyone she'd trusted to keep her safe. Ghost touched his arm and pointed upward. Light filtered through cracks in the ceiling. They were directly beneath the church parking lot. 5 minutes to extraction point, Ghost whispered. We come up through the old choir room. Should put us behind their main position. Marcus nodded and kept moving. The exit was a rusted ladder leading to a trap door that hadn't been opened in decades. Ghost applied pressure, slowly testing for resistance. The hinges screamed in protest, but the noise was covered by engines revving outside Hammer and Rodriguez arriving at the meet point. They emerged into darkness. The choir room was gutted, filled with debris and broken furniture, but it provided perfect cover for their approach. Through a shattered window, Marcus could see the parking lot. 6 vehicles. At least 15 men. Weapons drawn, positioned behind their cars, all facing the main entrance where Hammer's headlights were visible. And there, in the center of it all, a woman on her knees. Keisha Williams. She was alive. "I count 3 guards on her," Ghost murmured. 2 flanking one behind with a gun to her head. The rest are focused on the entrance. Can you take them? The 2 flankers, yes. The one behind her is risky. He might pull the trigger before I get a clean shot. Then I need to get closer. Reaper, cover me. Marcus moved before Ghost could argue. He slipped through the shadows along the church wall using abandoned cars and debris for cover. Every step brought him closer to Keisha Williams, closer to keeping his promise. 20 feet away, he could see her face clearly. Swollen, bloodied, but conscious. Her eyes were scanning the scene with desperate intensity, looking for any opportunity to survive. Then her eyes found him. For one frozen moment, they stared at each other. This woman he'd never met, this stranger whose daughter had changed everything. Marcus put a finger to his lips. Keisha Williams didn't react, didn't blink, didn't do anything to alert her captors. But something changed in her eyes. Hope. The exchange was about to go very wrong. And Marcus Thompson was counting on it. Marcus counted his heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. 15 feet separated him from Keisha Williams. 15 feet and 3 armed men who would kill her the moment they sensed something wrong. Ghost's voice crackled in his earpiece, barely audible. "Flankers locked, on your signal." The man with gold teeth, El Oro himself, stepped forward from behind one of the vehicles. His smile caught the distant streetlight, metal gleaming like a predator's fangs. "Where is the girl?" El Oro shouted toward Hammer's position. "You bring the mother, we bring the child. That was the deal." Hammer's voice echoed across the parking lot. "She's in the car. Let the woman go first." "You think I'm stupid?" El Oro laughed. "Bring the girl where I can see her, or I put a bullet in this puta's head right now." Marcus watched Keisha's body tense at the threat, but she didn't break, didn't beg. This woman had been tortured for hours, and she still refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. 30 seconds, Hammer called back. "Then we walk." El Oro's smile faltered. He turned to the man holding the gun to Keisha's head and muttered something in rapid Spanish. Marcus caught 3 words: "Kill her anyway." No more waiting. "Now," Marcus breathed. 2 suppressed shots. The flanking guards dropped without a sound. The 3rd guard, the one with the gun to Keisha's head, spun toward the fallen bodies. His weapon swung away from her skull for half a second. Half a second was enough. Marcus launched himself from cover. He crossed the 15 feet in less than 2 seconds, hitting the guard at full speed. They went down hard, the guard's pistol discharging into the air. Marcus's knife found the man's throat before they stopped rolling. "Get down!" Marcus grabbed Keisha and pulled her behind the nearest vehicle as the parking lot erupted into chaos. Gunfire exploded from every direction. El Oro screamed orders in Spanish. The Serpiente soldiers opened up on Hammer's position, their muzzle flashes strobing the darkness like lightning. "Can you move?" Marcus asked, cutting the ropes binding Keisha's hands. "I can run." Her voice was raw, damaged from screaming, but determined. "Where's Destiny?" "Safe. I promise she's safe." Keisha's eyes, swollen, nearly shut from the beatings, found his face. "You're the one she talked about. The motorcycle man. We need to go. Now." Marcus pulled Keisha toward the church wall, using the vehicles as cover. Ghost materialized beside them, his suppressed pistol spitting death at anyone who got too close. "Tunnel's compromised," Ghost reported. "They've got men circling behind us." "Then we go through them. Reaper, there's at least through them, Ghost." They moved fast, Keisha stumbling but refusing to slow down. A Serpientes soldier appeared around a corner, and Marcus put 2 rounds in his chest before the man could raise his weapon. Contact right, Ghost shouted. More gunfire. A bullet whipped past Marcus's ear close enough to feel the heat. He shoved Keisha behind a dumpster and returned fire, dropping 2 more cartel soldiers. Hammer, where are you? Marcus barked into his radio. Pinned down at the entrance. They've got us bracketed. Can you break contact? Negative. There's too many of them. Marcus looked at Keisha, then at Ghost. The math was getting worse by the second. They had the woman, but they were surrounded, outgunned, and running out of time. Then he heard it. Motorcycles. Dozens of them. The thunder of engines rolling in from the west like the wrath of God himself. Steel! Tommy Rodriguez's voice boomed through the night. Iron wolves hit them hard. The Serpientes formation collapsed as 15 iron wolves crashed into their flank. Marcus watched El Oro's face transform from triumph to terror in the space of a heartbeat. Fall back, El Oro screamed. Fall back to the vehicles. No, you don't, Marcus muttered. He broke from cover and sprinted directly at El Oro. The cartel lieutenant saw him coming and raised his weapon, gold teeth bared in a snarl. Marcus didn't slow down. El Oro fired. The bullet caught Marcus in the shoulder, spinning him halfway around. But momentum carried him forward, and he hit El Oro like a freight train. They crashed through a car window together, glass exploding around them. El Oro tried to bring his gun up, but Marcus pinned his arm and drove his forehead into the man's nose. That's for Destiny, Marcus growled. He hit him again. That's for her mother. Again. And that's for every person you've ever hurt in your miserable life. El Oro's face was a ruin of blood and broken teeth. He coughed, spitting crimson. You think this changes anything? Kill me 10 more, take my place. The cartel never forgets, never forgives. That little girl, she'll never be safe. We'll find her. Marcus's hands closed around El Oro's throat. No, he said quietly. You won't. When it was over, Marcus stood slowly, his shoulder screaming with pain. The parking lot had gone quiet, except for the idling motorcycles and the moans of wounded men. Tommy Steele approached, his face grim. You look like Hell Reaper. Feel like it too. Marcus looked around at the carnage. Casualties. 2 of mine wounded, nothing fatal. Your boys are fine. Rodriguez took a graze, but he's too stubborn to admit it hurts. The Serpientes, dead or running. We count 12 down, maybe more. Steele's eyes found the body at Marcus's feet. That the one with the gold teeth was. Good. Steele spat on the corpse. Heard he liked hurting kids. Keisha appeared from behind the dumpster ghost, supporting her weight. She looked at the destruction around her with something like disbelief. You came for me, she whispered. You actually came for me. Your daughter asked us to. Marcus walked toward her, ignoring the blood soaking through his jacket. She said you told her to find the motorcycle men if she was ever in trouble. Keisha's composure finally cracked. Tears carved tracks through the blood and grime on her face. Is she okay? Please tell me she's okay. She's at our clubhouse with people I trust. She's been asking for you every hour since she got there. I need to see her. Please, I need to see my baby. We'll take you right now. Marcus turned to Ghost. Get her on a bike. Reaper. Hammer's voice cut through the night. We've got incoming multiple vehicles from the east. Marcus spun. Headlights were converging on their position, not motorcycles, but SUVs. Black. Government plates. Feds, Steele muttered. Someone called the damn feds. Ghost was already moving. That's FBI tactical response. If they catch us here with this many bodies... Everyone scatter, Marcus ordered. Steele, get your people out. Hammer, Rodriguez take secondary routes back to the clubhouse. What about you? I'm taking Keisha home to her daughter. Reaper, you're shot. I've been shot before. Marcus grabbed Keisha's arm gently. Can you ride? I'll manage. Then let's go. They ran for his bike, while the Hell's Angels scattered in every direction. Marcus climbed on, and Keisha wrapped her arms around him from behind, holding tight despite her injuries. The engine roared to life. Marcus gunned it toward the only exit the feds hadn't blocked yet, a narrow alley between abandoned buildings. His shoulder was on fire, his vision starting to blur around the edges, but none of that mattered. Behind him, Keisha pressed her face against his back and held on like her life depended on it. Because it did. The FBI SUVs tried to follow, but motorcycles were made for exactly this kind of escape-tight spaces, sharp turns, obstacles that would stop a car dead. Marcus wove through the urban maze with the instincts of someone who'd been evading law enforcement for 3 decades. They're falling back, Keisha shouted over the engine. Don't celebrate yet. He was right. His radio crackled with Ghost's voice. Reaper, we've got a problem. Someone's hitting the clubhouse. Marcus's blood went cold. What? Serpientes. Must have been a backup team waiting for the signal. Snake's holding them off, but they're coming in hard. Destiny. Marcus pushed the bike faster than he'd ever pushed it before. Streets blurred past. Stop signs became suggestions. Other vehicles became obstacles to dodge at 90 miles per hour. How far? Keisha demanded. 5 minutes. Maybe less. My daughter. I know. The ride felt like hours. Every second stretched into eternity as Marcus's mind painted horrific scenarios of what might be happening at the clubhouse. He'd left Destiny there with Angel and Doc and 6 club members who'd promised to protect her. But the Serpientes had sent an army. When the clubhouse came into view, Marcus's heart nearly stopped. Muzzle flashes lit the windows like strobe lights. Bullet holes pockmarked the brick walls. 3 Serpientes vehicles were parked outside their occupants, using them as cover while they poured fire into the building. Angel! Marcus shouted into his radio. Angel report. Static. Snake Doc, anyone. More static. Then a small voice. Terrified, but alive. Marcus, Destiny. I'm here, baby girl. I'm right outside. Where are you? The safe room. Angel put me here when the bad men came. She told me to hide and not come out no matter what. Good girl. You stay there, okay? Stay there and don't move. I'm coming to get you. Marcus, there's so much loud noise. Is Mama okay? Did you find Mama? Keisha grabbed the radio from Marcus's hand. Destiny, baby, it's Mama. I'm here. I'm right outside with Marcus. The sound Destiny made wasn't quite a word. It was pure relief given voice, a child's joy cutting through horror. Mama, Mama, I knew you'd come back. I knew it. I'm coming, baby. Just hold on. Mama's coming. Marcus skidded the bike to a stop behind a dumpster out of the Serpientes line of fire. His mind raced through tactical options, discarding each one as soon as it formed. The cartel had maybe 10 men outside. The front entrance was suicide. The back door was probably covered. The windows were too high to reach without a ladder. Give me a gun, Keisha said. What? I said give me a gun. Her eyes burned with something far more dangerous than fear. Those men in there have been trying to kill me and my daughter for weeks. They beat me. They threatened my baby. They murdered a police officer and they were going to murder us too. She grabbed Marcus's backup pistol from his waistband before he could stop her. Now they're shooting at the people who saved us, so give me more ammunition and get out of my way. Marcus stared at this woman, beaten, tortured, barely able to stand, and saw the same fire that had kept her alive through hell. You know how to use that. My father was Army. He taught me to shoot before he taught me to ride a bike. Then stay behind me and aim for center mass. They moved together through the shadows, circling toward the cartel's position. The Serpientes were too focused on the clubhouse to watch their backs properly, a fatal mistake. Marcus took the first two with his knife-silent kills that dropped them before they could alert the others. Keisha covered him, her hands steady, despite everything she'd endured. "3 more on the left," she whispered. "I see them." Marcus drew his pistol. The suppressor was gone, lost somewhere during the fight at the church, so this would be loud and fast. "On 3, he said. 1, 2. Gunfire erupted from inside the clubhouse. Snake Williams had apparently decided to counterattack, and his timing couldn't have been better. Marcus charged the distracted cartel soldiers. His first shot took down the nearest man. The second shot dropped another. The third soldier tried to swing his weapon around, but Keisha was faster. Her bullet caught him square in the chest. "Damn," Marcus breathed. "I told you, my father was army." The remaining Serpientes broke and ran for their vehicles. Marcus let them go, securing destiny was more important than vengeance. "Snake!" he shouted, approaching the clubhouse. "It's Reaper! We're coming in." The door flew open and Doc appeared, blood on his shirt and a shotgun in his hands. "Thank God. Get inside before more of them show up." "Where's Destiny?" "Safe room. Angel's with her." Doc's eyes widened when he saw Keisha. "You got her out. You actually got her out." "Where's the safe room?" "This way." They ran through the clubhouse, past bullet holes and broken furniture and shell casings littering the floor. Marcus could hear Destiny crying somewhere ahead. Not screams of terror, but sobs of relief. The safe room door was reinforced steel, hidden behind a false wall that few people knew existed. Angel was there, punching in the combination with shaking hands. "She's okay," Angel said immediately, seeing the question in Marcus's eyes. "Scared, but okay. Not a scratch on her." The door swung open. Destiny launched herself out like a small missile. She hit her mother at full speed, nearly knocking both of them to the ground. "Mama! Mama! Mama! Mama!" Keisha crumpled to her knees, wrapping her daughter in an embrace so tight it looked almost painful. Both of them were sobbing now, clutching each other like the world was ending, and only this moment mattered. "I'm here, baby. I'm here. Mama's never leaving you again. Never ever." "I was so scared, Mama. The bad men came and there was so much noise and Angel said we had to hide. You were so brave. My brave, brave girl." Marcus stood back, watching the reunion he'd promised to deliver. His shoulder was still bleeding. His entire body ached. In the last 12 hours, he'd started a war, killed more men than he could count, and nearly died 3 times. But watching Destiny cling to her mother, watching Keisha press kisses to her daughter's forehead while tears streamed down both their faces, it was worth it. All of it was worth it. Angel appeared at his side, slipping her hand into his. "You did good, Reaper." "We did good, all of us. Your shoulder needs attention. It can wait. Marcus, let me have this moment." His voice cracked slightly. "Let me watch them have this moment. Then Doc can dig the bullet out." Angel didn't argue. She just held his hand and stood with him while a mother and daughter put themselves back together. It was Snake Williams who finally broke the spell. He limped over with a phone in his hand, his face troubled. "Reaper, we've got a situation." "Can it wait?" "No." Snake showed him the screen. "It's all over the news. The shootout at St. Catherine's. The attack here. They're calling it a gang war and they've got aerial footage of our bikes fleeing the scene." Marcus took the phone and read the headline. "Biker gang violence erupts across city. Multiple casualties reported." Below the headline, a photograph. His photograph. A mugshot from 10 years ago plastered across every news channel in the state. "The feds are looking for you," Snake continued. "The news says there's a warrant for your arrest. They're calling you the mastermind behind tonight's violence." "What about the Serpientes?" "Not a word. The cops, the cartels, they're spinning this as pure biker aggression. We're the bad guys in this story. Marcus looked at Keisha and Destiny still holding each other on the floor. This woman had evidence that could blow the whole conspiracy wide open. Photographs of a cop being murdered by cartel soldiers, documentation of police corruption at the highest levels. Everything needed to expose the real bad guys. But if Marcus was arrested before that evidence reached the right hands, it would disappear. The dirty cops would make sure of it, and the Serpientes would keep hunting Keisha and Destiny until they finished what they'd started. "We need to go underground," Ghost said, reading the situation instantly. "Get the woman and kid somewhere safe, then figure out how to get her evidence to people who will actually use it. Where every cop in the city is looking for us." "Not every cop." Angel pulled out her own phone. "Remember that FBI agent Keisha was supposed to meet Sarah Chen? I made some calls earlier tonight. She's clean part of a federal task force investigating cartel infiltration of local law enforcement. You contacted the FBI. Someone had to have a backup plan in case everything went sideways." Angel's smile was tired but triumphant. "Agent Chen is very interested in meeting Keisha Williams, and she's willing to guarantee protection in exchange for testimony." Marcus looked at Keisha. "Your choice. You can stay off the grid with us, or you can trust the feds to keep you safe." Keisha stood slowly, keeping Destiny pressed against her side. "The feds let a cop killer walk free for 3 weeks. They let cartel money buy half their department. Why should I trust them now?" "Agent Chen isn't local. She's federal, and she's been building a case against the Serpientes for 2 years. Your evidence could be the final piece she needs. And if she can't protect us, then we will." Marcus met her eyes. "Whatever you decide, Keisha, you and Destiny are under our protection now. That doesn't end because you talked to the FBI." Destiny tugged on her mother's shirt. "Mama, can we trust the motorcycle men?" Keisha looked around the bullet-riddled clubhouse, at Doc, who was now bandaging Snake's wounded arm, at Angel, who had hidden her daughter in a safe room and defended her with her life, at Ghost and Hammer, and all the other rough men who had gone to war for a stranger's child. "Yes, baby," Keisha said finally. "We can trust them." She turned to Marcus. "Call Agent Chen. I'll tell her everything. But if anything happens to my daughter, nothing will happen to her." Marcus took her hand. "I made a promise, Keisha, and I don't break my promises." The next call Marcus made would change everything. But first he let Doc finally dig that bullet out of his shoulder, while Destiny sat beside him holding his hand and telling him he was very brave for not crying. He did cry a little, but only because his eyes were watering from the pain. At least that's what he told everyone. Agent Sarah Chen arrived at the safe house 47 minutes after Angel's call. She came alone, driving an unmarked sedan, wearing civilian clothes instead of tactical gear. That told Marcus everything he needed to know about how she viewed this meeting. "You're either very brave or very stupid," Marcus said, blocking the doorway. "I've been called both." Chen didn't flinch. "Where's Keisha Williams?" "Inside. But before you talk to her, you and I need to have a conversation." "About what?" "About how a federal agent let a witness to police corruption get kidnapped by the same cartel she was supposed to be investigating." Chen's jaw tightened. "I didn't let anything happen. Keisha Williams contacted my office 3 days ago. We scheduled a meeting for Monday. Someone inside my own department leaked that information to the Serpientes before I could get protective custody arranged. Someone inside the FBI. Someone inside local law enforcement who has access to federal communications. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison has friends everywhere, Mr. Thompson. That's how he's stayed untouchable for so long." Marcus studied her face for signs of deception. He'd spent 30 years reading people liars, con artists, undercover cops, trying to infiltrate his club. Sarah Chen wasn't lying. "If I let you talk to her, what guarantees can you offer? federal witness protection, new identities for her and her daughter, relocation to anywhere in the country, and immunity from prosecution for anything she might have done while under cartel coercion. That's for her. What about us? Chen hesitated. That's more complicated. Uncomplicated. You killed cartel soldiers tonight. A lot of them. The local DA is under pressure to charge you with multiple counts of murder. Those cartel soldiers were holding a woman hostage and hunting a 6-year-old child. Everything we did was in defense of innocent lives. I know that. But proving it requires Keisha Williams' testimony, which she can't give if she's in witness protection and you're in prison. Marcus felt the trap closing. The same evidence that could save Keisha could damn him. And the people who wanted him silenced knew it. What are you proposing? Cooperation. Full cooperation with my investigation. In exchange, I'll make sure the DA understands exactly what happened tonight and why. Chen leaned closer. Mr. Thompson, I've been building a case against the Serpientes and their police connections for 2 years. Keisha Williams has evidence that could bring down the entire network. But I need more than photographs. I need testimony. I need witnesses who can identify cartel soldiers and dirty cops. I need people who are willing to stand up in court and tell the truth. You want us to testify. I want justice. For Detective Morrison, who was murdered for refusing to take cartel money. For the other cops who died because they wouldn't stay bought. For every victim the Serpientes have created in this city. Chen's voice hardened. And yes, Mr. Thompson, I want the men who tortured a mother and terrorized her child to spend the rest of their lives in federal prison. Don't you want the same thing? Marcus turned and looked back into the safe house. Through the doorway, he could see Destiny sitting on Angel's lap, finally calm enough to eat the sandwich Doc had made for her. Keisha sat beside them, one hand always touching her daughter, as if afraid she might disappear again. Wait here, Marcus said. He walked inside and crouched down beside Keisha. The FBI agent wants to talk to you. She's offering witness protection. New names, new city, new life. But there's a catch. There's always a catch. She wants you to testify, not just hand over the photographs, but stand up in court and tell a jury exactly what you saw. That means coming out of hiding. That means facing the men who hurt you. Keisha's hand tightened on Destiny's shoulder. What happens if I say no? Then she takes what evidence you're willing to give and does the best she can. You and Destiny disappear, start over somewhere else. But the dirty cops might walk. The cartel might rebuild. And other families might go through what you went through. And if I say yes, then you help bring down everyone responsible. Harrison, the Serpientes, anyone connected to Morrison's murder. But you become a target for the rest of your life. Keisha was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at her daughter. Destiny, baby, can you go with Miss Angel for a minute? Mama needs to talk to Marcus. Angel took Destiny's hand and led her toward the kitchen. Once they were gone, Keisha turned back to Marcus. Before tonight, I was a coward. I stayed with Jerome even after I knew what he was. I let him hurt my daughter because I was afraid of what would happen if I ran. Her voice cracked. Every bruise on Destiny's body is my fault. Every nightmare she's going to have for the rest of her life is because I was too weak to protect her. That's not... Let me finish. Keisha's eyes blazed with something fierce and broken. When I saw Detective Morrison get murdered, something changed. I realized that if I didn't do something, Destiny would grow up thinking that monsters always win, that good people just accept evil because fighting back is too hard. She grabbed Marcus's hand. You didn't accept it. You came for us. You went to war for a woman you'd never met, and a child who knocked on your door in the middle of a storm. Anyone would have. No, they wouldn't. I've been asking for help for 6 months. The police told me to work it out with my boyfriend. My family said I was exaggerating. My neighbors looked the other way because they didn't want trouble. Keisha's grip tightened. You're the first person who actually did something. You and your people. Men that everyone says are criminals and thugs and outlaws. We are those things. Maybe. But you're also the only ones who showed up when it mattered. She let go of his hand and stood up, squaring her shoulders despite the pain that movement clearly caused. Bring in the FBI agent. I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. And when I'm done, Harrison and the Serpients and everyone who ever hurt my daughter are going to prison for the rest of their miserable lives. Marcus smiled for the first time in what felt like days. That's what I was hoping you'd say. Agent Chen spent 3 hours taking Keisha's statement. The photographs were photographed, cataloged, and secured in an evidence bag. The notebook detailing 6 months of cartel activity was treated like the treasure it was. Marcus sat in the corner listening to Keisha describe horrors that would have broken most people. The beatings. The threats. The night Jerome held a gun to Destiny's head and told Keisha that if she ever tried to leave, he'd make her watch her daughter die first. Destiny was asleep in the other room by then, thank God. Some things a child should never hear, even if she'd lived through them. When Keisha finished, Agent Chen closed her notebook and let out a long breath. This is enough, she said quietly. Harrison, Jerome, Carter, at least a dozen cartel soldiers, we can take them all down with this. When? Soon. I need to coordinate with my superiors, make sure we have enough personnel to hit all the targets simultaneously. If word gets out before we're ready, it won't get out from us. I wasn't worried about you. Chen stood and extended her hand to Marcus. For what it's worth, Mr. Thompson, you did something remarkable tonight. Most people would have turned that little girl away, called the cops, let someone else handle it. You didn't. Most people don't understand what it's like to be that little girl. Chen studied him for a moment. You were that kid once. The one nobody came for. It wasn't a question. My mother's boyfriend used to beat her every Saturday night after he finished a case of Budweiser. I was 8 the first time I called 911. Took the cops 2 hours to show up. By then, my mother had already cleaned up the blood and told them everything was fine. Marcus's voice was flat, emotionless. I learned young that nobody saves you. You either save yourself or you don't get saved. And tonight I decided maybe that doesn't have to be true for everyone. Chen nodded slowly. I'll be in touch about the raids. In the meantime, keep Keisha and Destiny safe. My people will take over protection once the warrants are executed. She left through the back door, disappearing into the night as quietly as she'd arrived. Marcus found Angel in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. How bad? She asked. Bad enough that a federal agent is willing to stake her career on taking down half the city's power structure. And us, she's going to try to keep us out of it. No promises, but she understands what really happened tonight. Angel set down her coffee and walked over to him. Her fingers traced the bandage on his shoulder, the bruises on his face, the exhaustion carved into every line of his body. You need sleep. I need a lot of things. Start with sleep. The rest we'll figure out together. Marcus pulled her into his arms and held on like she was the only solid thing in a world gone mad. Maybe she was. I keep thinking about what would have happened if we'd turned her away, he said into her hair. If we'd called the cops and washed our hands of it. We didn't. But we could have. We almost did. Snake wanted to. Hammer thought we were crazy. But you didn't listen to them. Angel pulled back enough to look at his face. You knelt down in the rain, and you looked that little girl in the eyes, and you made her a promise. That's who you are, Marcus. That's who you've always been underneath all the leather and the reputation. You just forgot for a while. I killed people tonight. A lot of people. People who were going to kill a mother and her child. Does that make it right? I don't know. But I know that little girl is sleeping in the next room instead of in a shallow grave, and her mother is alive instead of being tortured to death, and that happened because you chose to fight for them. Angel's eyes glistened. If that's wrong, then I don't want to be right. Marcus kissed her forehead, then her lips. What did I do to deserve you? Something terrible, probably. I have very low standards. He laughed for the first time in what felt like forever. The next 3 days passed in a blur of tension and preparation. Agent Chen's team worked around the clock, building cases, securing warrants, coordinating with federal marshals who hadn't been compromised by cartel money. Keisha gave 2 more depositions, each one more detailed than the last. The FBI lawyers were practically salivating over the evidence she provided, not just the photographs and the notebook, but her testimony about cartel operations, police corruption, and the systematic intimidation that had kept her silent for 6 months. Destiny started talking to a child psychologist that Chen arranged. The therapist was a grandmotherly woman named Dr. Patricia Hayes, who specialized in childhood trauma. After 3 sessions, she pulled Marcus aside. That little girl has been through more in her 6 years than most people experience in a lifetime, Dr. Hayes said. But she's remarkably resilient. Do you know why? No. Because she believes in you. She told me that Marcus promised to bring her mama home, and he did. She told me that Marcus promised the bad men would never hurt her again, and she believes it. Dr. Hayes's expression was both sad and hopeful. Children who have been through trauma often struggle to trust anyone ever again. But Destiny trusts you completely. That's an extraordinary gift, Mr. Thompson. Don't waste it. I won't. I know you won't. That's why I'm recommending that when this is over, she should remain in your care rather than being placed in the foster system. Marcus stared at her. I'm a convicted felon. I run a motorcycle club. I've been arrested more times than I can count. And you're also the person who went to war for that little girl when no one else would. The system that was supposed to protect her failed. You didn't. Dr. Hayes smiled gently. Children need someone who will fight for them, Mr. Thompson. Everything else is details. The raids happened on a Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after Destiny had knocked on the clubhouse door. Marcus watched from the safe house as news helicopters circled the city, broadcasting live footage of federal agents storming cartel safe houses, police stations, and the home of Lieutenant Colonel Harrison himself. Keisha sat beside him, holding Destiny on her lap. Angel was on his other side, her hand squeezing his. Breaking news this morning as FBI agents execute multiple warrants across the metropolitan area, the news anchor announced. Sources indicate that these raids are connected to an ongoing investigation into police corruption and cartel activity. We're told that at least 15 arrests have been made so far, including several high-ranking law enforcement officials. The screen cut to footage of Harrison being led out of his house in handcuffs. The man's face was a mask of disbelief and fury, the expression of someone who had thought himself untouchable. That's the man, Keisha whispered. The one in the photographs. He was there when they killed Detective Morrison. He's done, Marcus said. They're all done. The news coverage continued for hours. 16 arrests turned into 22. Evidence seized from Harrison's home included ledgers documenting cartel payments stretching back 5 years. 3 more corrupt cops were identified and arrested before noon. Jerome Carter was found hiding in a motel outside the city, trying to buy a bus ticket to Mexico. The footage of his arrest face pressed against the pavement, hands cuffed behind his back, played on a loop all afternoon. Destiny watched that part with fierce attention. That's the man who hurt Mama, she said quietly. The one who said he would hurt me if she didn't do what he said. He's going to prison, Marcus told her. For a very, very long time. Good. Destiny's voice was harder than any 6-year-old's should be. I hope the other prisoners are mean to him. Nobody corrected her. By evening, Agent Chen called with a final update. "It's over," she said. "We've dismantled the entire network. Harris and Jerome, the cartel leadership, they're all in federal custody. The evidence Keisha provided was even more valuable than we expected. We've got enough to put these people away for the rest of their lives." "What about us?" "The DA has agreed to drop all charges against you and your club members. Officially, you are acting in defense of innocent lives against organized criminal activity. Unofficially, nobody wants the embarrassment of prosecuting the people who did what law enforcement failed to do." "And Keisha and Destiny?" "Witness protection is still an option if they want it. But with the cartel leadership in custody and the dirty cops exposed, the immediate threat has been neutralized. They could stay in the city if they prefer. It's their choice." Marcus thanked her and hung up. Keisha was standing in the doorway, Destiny's hand in hers. "It's really over?" she asked. "It's really over." Keisha closed her eyes and let out a breath she seemed to have been holding for months. When she opened them again, tears were streaming down her face. "I don't know how to thank you. I don't know how to thank any of you." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. You gave me my life back. You gave my daughter a future." Keisha's voice broke. "How do you repay something like that?" Marcus looked at Destiny, who was watching him with those two old eyes that had seen too much and trusted too little until she'd trusted him. "You live," he said simply. "You take your daughter somewhere safe, and you build a life, and you don't let what happened to you define who you become. That's how you repay it." "I don't even know where to start." "Start by deciding what you want, not what you think you should want or what other people expect. What do you actually want?" Keisha was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at her daughter. "I want Destiny to grow up somewhere she feels safe. I want her to go to school and make friends and have the childhood I couldn't give her before." She met Marcus's eyes. "And I want to stay close to the people who saved us, if that's okay." "You want to stay in the city?" "I want to stay near you, near Angel and Doc and everyone who fought for us." Keisha's chin lifted. "You're the closest thing to family we've got." Marcus felt something shift in his chest, the same feeling he'd had when Destiny first grabbed his hand in the rain. "Then you'll stay," he said, "and we'll figure out the rest together." Destiny tugged on Marcus's shirt. He crouched down to her level. "Does this mean you're not going away?" she asked. "I'm not going anywhere." Promise. Marcus Thompson had spent his whole life avoiding promises. But this little girl had changed something in him, something he'd thought was dead. "I promise," he said. And for the second time in his life, he meant it completely. 3 months after the raids, Marcus Thompson stood in a courtroom wearing the only suit he owned, watching as Lieutenant Colonel Harrison received his sentence. Life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. The gavel came down. Harrison's face contorted with rage as marshals led him away. He turned once to look at Keisha, who sat in the gallery with Destiny pressed against her side. "This isn't over," Harrison snarled. "You think you've won. The cartel never forgets. They'll find you. They'll get him out of here," the judge ordered. The doors closed behind Harrison, cutting off his threats. Marcus looked at Keisha. She was trembling slightly, but her chin was high and her eyes were dry. She'd faced the man who ordered her torture and watched him fall. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked as they left the courthouse. "Like I can finally breathe." Destiny tugged on Marcus's hand. "Is the mean man going to prison forever? Forever and ever?" "Good." She nodded with satisfaction. "Can we get ice cream now?" Marcus laughed a real laugh, the kind that came from somewhere deep. "Yeah, baby girl, we can get ice cream." The trial had lasted 6 weeks. Keisha testified for 4 of those days, recounting everything she'd witnessed and endured. The photographs she'd taken became the centerpiece of the prosecution's case, displayed on massive screens for the jury to see. Detective Morrison's murder, Harrison's involvement, the systematic corruption that had allowed the Serpientes to operate with impunity for years. Jerome Carter had tried to cut a deal offering to testify against his former partners in exchange for reduced charges. The prosecutors refused. He received 47 years. El Oro's surviving lieutenants received sentences ranging from 20 years to life. The cartel's local operation was completely dismantled, and through it all, Marcus Thompson's name had stayed out of the newspapers. Agent Chen had kept her word. The DA dropped all charges. The official record showed only that concerned citizens had assisted federal authorities in rescuing a kidnapping victim. Concerned citizens. Marcus almost smiled at that. The ice cream shop was crowded with families enjoying a Saturday afternoon. Marcus felt conspicuous in his leather jacket surrounded by soccer moms and screaming toddlers, but Destiny dragged him to a booth without hesitation. "I want chocolate with sprinkles," she announced, "and whipped cream, and a cherry on top." "That's a lot of toppings." "I'm a growing girl. Mama said so." Keisha slid into the booth across from them, a genuine smile transforming her face. 3 months of safety had done wonders. The bruises were long healed. She'd gained weight. The haunted look in her eyes had faded to something like peace. "She's been talking about this ice cream trip all week," Keisha said. "You'd think we were going to Disneyland." "Ice cream is better than Disneyland," Destiny declared. "You can't eat Disneyland." "She's got a point," Marcus admitted. The waitress approached, and Marcus watched Destiny order with the confidence of a child who no longer expected the world to hurt her. That transformation from the terrified, shivering girl who'd knocked on his door to this bright, laughing kid arguing passionately for extra sprinkles was worth everything. "Marcus?" Destiny's voice cut through his thoughts. "Yeah? Are you going to be my daddy?" The question hit him like a physical blow. Keisha's spoon froze halfway to her mouth. "Destiny," Keisha said carefully. "We talked about this. Marcus is our friend. But Sarah at school has a daddy who's not her real daddy. She said her mom married him and now he's her daddy. Is that what's going to happen?" Marcus and Keisha looked at each other across the table. Something passed between them. Not romance, not attraction, but something deeper. Understanding. Respect. The bond of people who had survived hell together. "Destiny," Marcus said slowly. "Being someone's daddy is a big responsibility. It means being there for them every single day, helping them grow up, keeping them safe. You already do all that." "I do. You come to my school plays. You helped me with my math homework even though you said bad words when you couldn't figure out the fractions. You taught me to ride a bike. You scared away the mean boy who pulled my hair." Destiny's eyes were impossibly serious. "That's what daddies do. Angel told me." Marcus looked at Keisha again. She was crying now, not sad tears, but something more complicated. "Baby," Keisha said softly, "what Marcus has done for us is more than most people do in a lifetime. But you can't just ask someone to be your daddy. That's not how it works." "Why not?" "Because," Keisha trailed off, unable to find the words. Marcus reached across the table and took Keisha's hand. Then he reached over and took Destiny's hand too. "Can I tell you both something?" They nodded. "When I was about your age, Destiny, I wished every single day that someone would come and save me, that someone would take me away from the bad place I lived in and make me part of their family. Nobody ever did. I grew up thinking that families were just something other people had." "That's so sad," Destiny whispered. "It was. For a long time I was angry about it. I did a lot of things I'm not proud of because I thought the world owed me something for what I went through. Marcus squeezed both their hands. But then you knocked on my door, and everything changed. I changed things. You changed everything. You reminded me that sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you're meant to have. Sometimes family is something you choose, something you build. Marcus looked at Keisha. If your mama says it's okay, and if you really want me to be your daddy, then I would be honored. Destiny's face lit up like the sun coming out from behind clouds. Mama, can he… Please. Keisha wiped her eyes with her free hand. Marcus, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. He held her gaze. Your daughter saved my life, Keisha. She saved my soul. The least I can do is spend the rest of my life trying to deserve her. But your club? Your life? My life is whatever I decide it is. And I've decided that being there for Destiny matters more than anything I've ever done. Keisha was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at her daughter, this resilient, brave, incredible little girl who had survived horrors and somehow emerged with her capacity for love intact. What do you think, baby? Are you sure this is what you want? I've never been more sure of anything in my whole entire life. Keisha laughed through her tears. Then I think we have an answer. Destiny launched herself across the booth and into Marcus's arms. He caught her and held on tight, feeling something crack open in his chest. Not pain, but release. Years of armor falling away, revealing the person he'd been afraid to become. I love you, Daddy, Destiny whispered. Marcus closed his eyes. The words he'd never expected to hear. The words he'd never expected to say back. I love you too, baby girl. The adoption process took 6 months. There were home visits and background checks and mountains of paperwork that made Marcus want to tear his hair out. The social workers were skeptical at first. A biker with a criminal record wasn't exactly their ideal candidate for fatherhood. But Dr. Hayes testified on his behalf. So did Agent Chen. So did every single member of the Hells Angels who showed up in force to character witness after character witness, proving that family came in all forms. The day the judge signed the final papers, Destiny wore her best dress, and Marcus wore his suit again. Keisha sat in the gallery beside Angel, both of them crying. This court hereby grants the petition for adoption, the judge announced. Destiny Williams is now legally Destiny Thompson. Destiny jumped up from her seat and did a little dance that made the entire courtroom laugh. I have a real daddy now, she shouted. A real actual daddy who's going to live with us forever. Marcus knelt down and opened his arms. She flew into them like she'd been doing it her whole life. Forever and ever, he promised. The celebration at the clubhouse that night was unlike anything in Hell's Angels history. There were balloons and streamers and a massive cake that Snake Williams had somehow convinced a bakery to decorate with motorcycles and flowers. Every club member came. So did their families. The Iron Wolves sent representatives. Phoenix Martinez from the Wild Cards showed up with her daughters, who immediately adopted Destiny as their new best friend. Never thought I'd see the day, Tommy Steele said, clinking his beer against Marcus's. Reaper Thompson, family man. Life's full of surprises. Good ones this time. Steele watched Destiny lead a group of children in some kind of elaborate game that involved a lot of running and screaming. She's going to turn out okay, you know, despite everything she went through. Because of everyone who helped her through it. Because of you, Reaper. The rest of us just followed your lead. Marcus thought about that as the party continued around him. A year ago, he would have laughed at the idea of adopting a child, of caring about anyone more than he cared about himself and his club. But a knock on the door had changed everything. 3 small knocks from a little girl who believed in heroes. Angel appeared at his side with a glass of whiskey. You're brooding. I'm reflecting. There's a difference. She leaned against him. What are you reflecting about? Whether I'm going to mess this up? You won't. How do you know? Because I've watched you with her for the past year. I've seen you wake up at 3 a.m. when she has nightmares. I've seen you learn to braid hair from YouTube videos. I've seen you threaten to destroy any boy who breaks her heart even though she's only 7. Angel smiled. You're already a good father, Marcus. The paperwork just made it official. What about you? What about me? Destiny asked me yesterday if you were going to be her mommy. Angel went very still. What did you tell her? I told her that was a question for grown-ups to figure out. Marcus turned to face her. So I'm asking as a grown-up. What do you want, Angel? I want what I've always wanted. You, her, a life that means something. Angel's eyes glistened. I want to be there when she graduates from high school and goes to college and gets married. I want to watch her grow up knowing she's loved. I want... Marcus kissed her before she could finish. When they pulled apart, she was laughing and crying at the same time. Is that a yes? He asked. That's a hell yes. 2 years later, on a stormy October night that seemed to echo something fated, Marcus stood on the porch of the Hells Angels clubhouse and watched a familiar scene unfold. A young boy, maybe 8 years old, was stumbling up the driveway, soaking wet, terrified, clutching a backpack like his life depended on it. The clubhouse door opened behind Marcus, and Destiny, now 9 tall for her age, with her mother's fierce eyes and her father's stubborn jaw, stepped onto the porch. Daddy, who's that? I don't know yet. Stay here. Marcus walked down the steps toward the boy, who froze like a deer in headlights. It's okay, Marcus said softly, kneeling down to the boy's level. You're safe here. What's your name? Michael. The boy's teeth were chattering. Michael Rodriguez. Bad men took my sister. They said they were going to hurt her if my mama didn't give them money. Marcus felt the years fall away. Another child. Another nightmare. Another knock on the door from someone who had nowhere else to turn. How did you find us, Michael? My mama's friend. She said the motorcycle men help kids in trouble. She said they saved her and her daughter a long time ago. Michael's eyes, huge and terrified, met Marcus's. Can you save my sister? Please. Marcus looked back at the porch. Destiny had ignored his instruction to stay put, of course she had, and was now standing at the bottom of the steps watching the scene with an expression he recognized. The same expression she'd worn when she first understood that other people needed saving too. Daddy, Destiny said firmly, we have to help him. I know, baby. I can show him where the warm blankets are, and I can make hot chocolate now. Angel taught me. Marcus smiled despite the gravity of the moment. His daughter was already becoming the person he'd hoped she would be. Someone who saw suffering and responded with compassion. Someone who understood that strength meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Michael, Marcus said, standing and extending his hand. Come inside. We're going to help you find your sister. You promise? There it was again. That word, that impossible weight. But Marcus had learned something in the past 3 years. Promises weren't chains that bound you. They were wings that lifted you toward who you were meant to become. I promise, he said, and meant it with everything he had. The Hells Angels clubhouse had changed in the years since Destiny first arrived. There were toys in a corner now, a children's book collection that Snake Williams pretended he hadn't started. House rules posted on the wall that included things like no cursing when kids are around, and disputes settled in the back room only. And there was something else. something that had grown organically from that first stormy night. The sanctuary. What started as Marcus's personal crusade had evolved into a formal program. Social workers partnered with club members. Federal agents coordinated with bikers. Children who had nowhere else to go found safety behind the same walls that had once represented only danger. Dr. Hayes ran the counseling program now. Agent Chen served as the FBI liaison. Even some of the cops who hadn't been corrupted, the ones who'd been disgusted by Harrison's betrayal, had become quiet supporters. The system wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But children kept coming, and the Hell's Angels kept opening their doors. Because Marcus Thompson had learned that redemption wasn't a single act. It was a choice you made every day. A promise you kept renewing. A hand you kept extending to those who needed it most. 5 years after that first knock, Marcus sat in the audience at Destiny's middle school graduation. She'd given a speech, her idea, not anyone else's, about what family really meant. Family isn't about blood, she'd told the crowd. It's about who shows up when everything falls apart. It's about who fights for you when you can't fight for yourself. I know this because when I was 6 years old, I knocked on a stranger's door in the middle of a storm, and that stranger became my father. The applause had been thunderous. Afterward, outside the auditorium, Destiny found Marcus standing apart from the crowd, trying to hide the fact that he'd been crying. You liked my speech. I loved your speech. I meant every word. You know that, right? I know. Destiny hugged him. Not the desperate, clinging hugs of her childhood, but the confident embrace of someone who knew she was loved unconditionally. Thank you, Daddy. For everything. Thank you, Destiny, for saving my life. She pulled back, confused. I didn't save your life. You saved mine. Marcus shook his head. No, baby girl. You knocked on my door and reminded me that I had a choice, that I could keep being angry and alone and dangerous, or I could become someone worth being. You gave me something to fight for. He touched her face gently. You saved me first. I just returned the favor. Destiny's eyes filled with tears. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, more than anything in this world. They stood there for a moment, father and daughter, bound not by blood, but by something stronger, by the choice they'd made to become family. Then Destiny grinned, and the solemnity broke. Can we get ice cream now? Marcus laughed. Some things never change. Some things shouldn't. 10 years later, Marcus Thompson watched his daughter walk down the aisle at her wedding. She was 23. She'd graduated from college with a degree in social work. She'd spent 2 years running the sanctuary's youth program. She'd met a man who loved her completely, a former Marine named David, who'd lost his own parents young and understood exactly what it meant to build family from scratch. Keisha sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. She'd remarried 4 years ago to a high school principal who treated her like a queen and Destiny like his own. Angel sat beside Marcus, holding his hand tight enough to leave marks. You okay? Angel whispered. No. Marcus's voice was thick. My baby girl's getting married. I'm absolutely not okay. She's happy. I know. That's the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely. The ceremony was beautiful. The reception was chaos. Marcus danced with his daughter to a song she'd picked out years ago, back when she was 9 and planning her imaginary wedding. Remember when you taught me to dance? Destiny asked, her head resting on his shoulder. You stepped on my feet about 1,000 times. You never complained, not once. Because I knew this moment was coming. All those crushed toes were worth it. Destiny laughed, then grew serious. Daddy, can I tell you something? Anything. I'm pregnant. Marcus missed a step, then another. Then he stopped moving entirely. What? David and I found out last week. We wanted to wait until after the wedding to tell everyone, but I couldn't keep it from you. Destiny's eyes sparkled with joy. You're going to be a grandfather. Marcus Thompson, the man who had once been the most feared biker in California, who had killed more men than he could count, who had spent decades believing that family was something other people had felt tears streaming down his face. A grandfather, he'd whispered. I hope our baby is exactly like you, strong and brave and willing to fight for what matters. Destiny squeezed his hands. I hope they know what it means to be loved unconditionally, to be protected fiercely, to have someone who will go to war for them. That's what you're going to give them. You and David. That's what you taught me to give. Everything I am, everything I know about love and family and courage I learned from you. Marcus pulled his daughter into a hug that said everything words couldn't. 20 years ago, a terrified little girl had knocked on his door. Tonight, that little girl was married, pregnant, and thanking him for changing her life. But the truth was simpler than that. She had changed his. The story spread through the years. People called it legend. They said a little black girl had knocked on the Hells Angels' door in the middle of a storm and changed everything. They said the most dangerous biker in California had become a father that night. They said redemption was possible for anyone willing to fight for it. Marcus didn't correct them. Some stories were too important to diminish with details. But he knew the truth. It wasn't about heroism or redemption or legend. It was about a choice. A single moment when he could have turned a frightened child away and didn't. That was all it took. One choice. One promise. One knock on the door. And a life that meant something because he'd answered. On his 75th birthday, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who all knew the story, Marcus Thompson looked at the family he'd built and understood finally what his father's dog tags had been trying to tell him all along. The measure of a man isn't what he survives. It's what he protects. And Marcus Thompson had protected everything that mattered. The little girl who knocked on his door became his daughter. His daughter became his legacy. And his legacy became a simple truth that would outlast him by generations. Sometimes the people society fears most become the ones who save us. Sometimes family finds you in the middle of a storm. And sometimes 3 small knocks on a door are all it takes to change the world.